Hey guys, thanks for clicking on the video. It really means a lot. Before we continue, did you guys know only 0.1% of people that watch my videos are actually subscribed? So if you like the video, consider subscribing. It's free. Enjoy the video. So this video is essentially to share all the changes that I made to the server so far since I last talked to you guys about the server. I basically gave you an update. I changed out a lot of the, three of the things that's inside the server rack right now that I use most often. Basically, these three things are some of the loudest things in the rack, and I basically silenced it for the most part. And I just kind of want to share that with you guys. So, without further ado, let's get started. So to begin, the switch, the Netgear switch that I have, I switched out the stock fans for some Noctua fans. As you can see there, right on the inside. I don't know if you guys can see them, but they're right there. And it's for the most part completely silent, and that's one of the things that's been silenced. The next is the router, and this is the WatchGuard router. Or it used to be an email firewall. I'm not entirely sure what it used to be before, but it operates as a router now. It has pfSense on it. It's running pfSense, and basically this thing used to be extremely loud. Right now it's kind of loud. It's not bad, but it's bearable. It's if I was to unplug this right now, everything in the rack would just go silent, but with everything will still be on, and it just still be functioning as normal. Yeah, after that, the PSU, this thing, man, let me see if I can get it light down there. Yeah, the fan on this thing was the loudest fan ever. It was so loud, it was just ridiculous, and it was almost unbearable. The fact that it was even like the Trip Light even put that kind of fan in there, it was surprising. I'm pretty sure a lot of these fans are optimized. All the fans in here, they're optimized for performance and cooling. They're obviously not optimized for a quiet setting. But I'm gonna basically talk to you guys about that, about how you can basically almost silence your server rack and still have it in your office or workspace like normal. So yeah, right now we have one server on, R610, and a R710 on standby. I have a meter here to basically measure it for you guys on what the noise is, or the noise level. So I'm gonna measure it for you. I'm gonna be quiet so you guys can see what the ambient noise is. So as you can see, it's jumping between 40 and 44, 46. And with this all off, like the whole server off, like it's just like there's no noise in the room. It's about 35. So here is the server with the UPS, the router, and the switch on. It's not that loud. I'm actually gonna do a let me go ahead and open up the meter here, and I'll let you guys see for yourselves. So that's the server. The UPS is on, the router is on, and the switch back here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's on right now. But let's go ahead and show you that. So as you can see, it's jumping through 38 and 40-ish. And now I'm going to turn off the server and let you guys actually see everything for yourself. But let me go ahead and press the button on the router. And alright, so now the router's off. We're going to go ahead and hit the off, hold down the off button until it turns off. Go ahead and unplug the UPS. Give it a second, and then we're gonna remeasure with just the ambient noise with without the server on, and we'll see how loud it is. And let's start out. So as you can see, it's around, jumps from 36 at the lowest and 38 at the highest. It's not the numbers, they're really close, and there's not much of a difference. As I said before, it jumps between 38 and about 45. I think 45 was highest, and that was with everything that I use on at one time. So it wasn't too bad, but yeah, I'm trying to basically make the server rack bearable to work next to, because it's unbelievably loud. And the out of like everything, so basically the bottom of the last 7 R710 to the top of the rack is probably the most quietest thing that you're gonna get. The things that are the most loudest is the disk shelves and this Nimbus server. This Nimbus server is so loud, it is ridiculous how loud it is. It makes absolutely no sense how loud it is. But again, as I said, these servers aren't meant for, for sound or like noise. It's optimized for, airflow, cooling, and everything. So I can understand a lot of the reasons why they're so loud. They weren't meant to be put in like a home use, or like, I guess, a home office setting. So yeah. So essentially, let's just, that's pretty much it for right now. I'm gonna go over and show you guys some of the stuff I've been working on. So here are some of the fans that I pulled out of the old, this was out of the router. So this thing was so loud, and there's 3 of these. So what I did is I pulled out, I got some more silent fans, and basically something like this. So let me try to explain some of the stuff to you guys to the best of my ability. So a lot of these fans, they're not really, they're loud, they're extremely loud, and the reason for that is because of voltage. So most of these fans, they operate at, what does that say, 12 volts DC. So majority of fans operate at, let me see if I can try to get some outline off you guys. 12 volts DC. And depending on the fan type, the amperage can range from, I don't know, 0.1 to 0 to 1.6. So let's say if we have a fan that is operating at 1.6 amps, right? So this thing is going to be extremely loud. So it's going to be loud. Depending on the fan blade, it can, like, if it's a shallow fan blade, like it's just basically pointing straight up like this and not curved in a certain way, it could be extremely loud. So the fan blades can affect the sound. There's a bunch of things, like I can't remember off the top of my head. I actually did a Reddit post on this, and yeah, basically explaining all this stuff and trying to make it to where it's these fans are bearable, because a lot of these fans in these servers are like the loudest things ever. So the loudness comes from the voltage. So the 12 volts, it doesn't really matter. It's just like, that's just what it's ready to operate at, and it can operate up to 1.6 amps depending on how much current you put through it. So if you try to put more than 1.6 amps, it could potentially burn out the motor on the inside of the fan. I'm not sure if it can do that. I've never actually tried it, but I'm going to be showing you guys in a minute. But the voltage and amperage matters, and also the blade type. So like if the blade is shallow, it's usually, blades like this are usually optimized for airflow, and it doesn't really matter about how loud it is. But if it's curved almost like this, then it'll be optimized for sound. And I mean, of course, you can also put more airflow. It can be optimized for airflow like this, but normally from what I've seen through fans, when they usually are like this one right here, and it has a higher amperage rating, so it'll operate at a higher amperage, so it'll spin way faster, and then in turn it'll be a lot louder. So let me show you guys some of the stuff is what I mean. So I'm going to turn on my power supply, and let's so we're going to be testing out with this fan right here. We're going to put it up to what it's rated to operate at, which is 12 volts. So after that, we're going to go and raise it up. So we're going to keep it at 12 volts. And as you can see, it's about right there. And the more amperage, I guess that's about it. Oh, there we go. Put about 29 volts on that. And as you can see, the more voltage we put, the higher the amperage goes, the louder it gets. So let's go ahead and pull that back. I'm starting to smell a really bad smell through this, so I'm gonna drop it back down to 12 and pull our amperage back to where it was. So as you can see, you just saw firsthand that fan, it came out of something, I forget what it came out of, but essentially it was really loud and obnoxious. It was terrible to hear, and it just sucks. So right now we're gonna take these off, and we're gonna switch out the fans for the ones that was inside of the router. So these fans specifically were this fan right here. It was 3 of them. They were extremely loud for no apparent reason. It was just loud. It was hellish listening to it. So let's go ahead and connect the wires together. There we go. Here is the fan itself. So let's go ahead and turn on the power. Let's turn it up. So, we got some spinning right there. Now, before we actually start using, I'm going to stop it and I'm going to look at it. So 12 volts DC, and I guess we'll go from there, because it says up to 6 watts. I'm not sure how that would convert that over to amperage, but we'll figure out soon enough. So we'll turn up the voltage. And there you go. It's just loud. I mean, of course the airflow is pretty good, but as you can see, it's loud. And we're only at about 8 volts and 33.6 amps. I believe that's milliamps. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, it's this thing's loud, and this is what I would hear and all the time whenever the router was on. So it would drop from, so we put it up to 8. That was, yeah. it gets pretty loud. So about 9 volts, 10 voltage, that was what I hear on startup. And this is stabilized, but except ×3. So it was pretty loud. So let's go ahead and drop it down. Put the voltage down along with the amperage. Go ahead and stop that connection. So you guys can see this thing was loud, and that came from the router. That was just the router. So let's go ahead and test the UPS fan, and I'll show you guys how loud it was. It was ridiculously loud. I didn't get the levels before I took everything out. I probably should have, but I'm just kind of showing you guys how bad it was before, and just you guys can kind of gauge it from how you want it, how you think it would have sound. So, because it was ridiculous. So let's go ahead and I guess I'll put it like that. And basically, you know what? Let's go over here. I'll hold the. Let's go ahead and turn up the voltage. So we'll. Go ahead and start spinning it. It wants to spin. Yep. So there it is. So about right there. So what you see right there, 15.4. That's what I hit. That's what I heard all the time from this fan on the UPS. It was terrible. It was like just constant droning noise, and it wasn't pleasant. So let's go ahead and turn that down and put this back, and go ahead and clear that. So as you guys can see, the fans, they weren't the best to listen to. So you know, it wasn't the greatest. There are I'm gonna post. I'm gonna kind of show you guys. I'm gonna put some stuff on the screen now and kind of show you guys and go through some stuff with you. But basically, like there's about. Actually, let me pull up my. So basically, there are 4 things that affect your server, and basically the sound. Not, I guess you could say the sound, temperature, and other stuff, and just performance in general. Of course, there's let's start with one of the most obvious ones. It's going to be temperature, and the temperature, and that's also the internal and ambient. So the temperature, the internal temperature is going to affect the how fast the fans spin. So essentially, the fans will spin up as fast as it needs to basically compensate for the heat that's on the inside. So if it's extremely hot on the inside, the fans are going to speed up to expel that heat faster so it can cool down. And depending on the ambient temperature, so say if on the inside of the fan, or the inside of the let's say for instance a switch, it's 86 degrees or 86 Celsius on the inside, and the ambient temperature is let's say about 70, 73. It's stabilized. You lower that temperature about 65 degrees, you're going to be dropping that temperature on the inside of it pretty significantly, and that is also a way to keep your fan speed down or the noise down, is keeping it in a cool area, making sure that the ambient temperature is colder than what's on the inside. Not, I wouldn't say what's on the in. I guess you could say what's on the inside, significantly colder than what's on the inside. You don't want it to be anywhere near close to the temperature on the inside of it, because at that point you're just going to increase more heat. And you also want to don't let it go over the temperature of the inside, because at that point now you're just basically turning the equipment into a heater, and you don't want that. So basically what you want to do is try to keep the ambient temperature as cool as possible, which in turn will keep the fan speed down. Next is the voltage, amperage, and the fan blades. So one thing that I can say for a fact is the lower the amperage. So say if we have a regular, the fan operates at 12 volts DC, which all the normal fans, they usually operate at. You have one, as up here I said, it was 1.6 amps, and that's pretty loud. And depending on your fan blade angle and your amperage, it's going to depend on how loud it's going to be. So you want to get a fan blade or a fan that's basically going to be 12 volts DC, which every fan is normally at about 0.6 or 9. that's this area is a sweet spot. This is a sweet spot. I could say maybe 5, which are the Noctua fans. They're rated to work at is at 0.5 amps. So that's the sweet. This right here is the sweet spot. Any higher is it's a little too much. A little less is too less, or anything lower than that is way too low. You need to increase it up, because at that point it's not going to be spinning fast enough to expel any heat. It's just going to be creating heat at that point. So what you want is something around this area. This is the sweet spot, about 5 through 9 amps, or 0.5 through 0.9 amps is the sweet spot for the sound. The next thing we're going to talk about is the cleanliness of the equipment. So making sure that your server equipment is clean is important, because keeping server equipment clean is going to depend upon if your server is going to be pulling in basically new cold clean air. So if, say, the front of the server is clogged up with dirt, debris, and whatever is on the inside, your server will be able to pull in that cool air, and in turn the fans are going to start to spin up faster to compensate for the heat, so it can cool off. And that's just pretty much simple. Like you want to keep the inside of the server clean as much as possible. Not only that, it'll increase the lifespan of the server, and repaste what you can. Because most servers, I'd say all servers have your average CPU on the inside of it. So repaste that. Keep the server maintenance on that as often as possible. If you're constantly using the server, I'd say repaste every month, and to keep it from getting crusty and stuff on the inside, because heat changes the way how the paste looks. So if you ever looked at it, sometimes the thermal paste will start to get really crusty after a long time and brittle, and it's not supposed to be like that. It's supposed to be able to take the heat from the CPU and eject it from it, essentially, or expel the heat from the CPU into the heat sink, and that's what the fans are for. The fans are cooling the fins on the heat sink, and in turn cooling the CPU. Last but not least is thermodynamics. So right now, as you can see, my servers are stacked on top of each other. They all have rails on them, but like right now, they're not like here with this server where there's a one-use gap right in between them. They probably should be like that. I'm probably thinking about changing that in the future. But essentially, you want to have a space in between the servers so that they're not sitting directly on top of each other. Because say if I was to have all of these on, the heat from all of these would just basically build up in between this and just create just create so much heat. Either through direct contact, through conduction, convection, and radiation. Conduction, that's through direct contact. Radiation is through like heat. Basically, if something's near it, whatever is near it is going to heat up too as well, because it's actually near it. Convection, you don't really have to worry about that unless something is water cooled inside the server, but that's usually has to deal with fluids. But essentially, you guys want to keep the fans as the amperage as low as possible, or in that sweet spot, which I told you, 0.5, 0.9 amps. That's the sweet spot. You can go to 0.9 if you want to really you want to get all the performance as much as performance as you want, like as much airflow as you want, but also still want to keep it as quiet as possible. I'd say 9 is the best. But again, it's completely dependent upon you. I want it to be like how I have it, because the server's literally right next to me. I'm working on it, working in here basically every day, and it's right next to me. But again, it's dependent upon you. But for me specifically, I'd say it's about 0.5, 0.9 amps for the fan amperage. But with that being said, that's it. I want to thank you guys for sitting through the video. If you've reached this far, I really appreciate it. It means a lot. It really helps out the channel. You guys watch through the videos. If you like the video, go ahead and hit that like button. If didn't like it, go ahead and hit the dislike button and tell me what you didn't like about the video. With that being said, it's been a good time, but see you guys in the next one.